The modern world tells you to be kind, to be fair, to play by the rules. And yet those who rise to the top are rarely the kindest, nor the fairest. They are the ones who understand the real game, the art of power. The problem is simple: you are being controlled. By leaders, by corporations, by even those closest to you, while believing you are free. Today, we solve this problem by revealing how power truly works and how you can turn the game in your favor. Weakness is your enemy. Weakness is the greatest disease of the modern age. It parades itself as kindness, humility, and compassion. But in truth, it is the inability to command, the refusal to resist, and the surrender of one's will to the opinions of others. The world has convinced people that to be gentle is to be good, and to be strong is to be cruel. Yet history has never bowed to the gentle. It has always been carved by those who could master their own impulses and bend the impulses of others. Weakness, then, is not merely a personal flaw. It is an open invitation for domination. Most men and women believe themselves free, but in reality, they are governed by emotions. Watch closely. One man rises in anger and destroys his reputation in a single moment. Another drowns in envy, unable to celebrate another's success without feeling diminished. A woman, swayed by hope, places her trust in promises that were never meant to be fulfilled. And everywhere, the fear of loss, rejection, and judgment chains people to mediocrity. Those enslaved by emotions may speak of freedom, but their strings are already in the hands of others. The cunning understand this. They know that emotions, when properly studied, can be pulled like levers. Fear, for example, is a more reliable tool than love. Love is fickle, fragile, and dependent on constant feeding. Fear, on the other hand, requires only the memory of pain or the shadow of a threat to remain effective. Observe those around you. The student who obeys his teacher not because he admires him, but because he fears failing. The worker who stays silent under the command of his superior, not because he respects him, but because he fears losing his wage. Fear is the invisible chain binding society together, and those who deny this truth are the easiest to enslave. Yet weakness takes another form, one even more insidious: the addiction to approval. Modern life has trained people to crave recognition at every turn. They share their thoughts not for wisdom, but for applause. They dress not for dignity, but for validation. They act not according to their own will, but according to what they believe others expect of them. A person who lives for approval is a puppet whose strings can be pulled with the faintest promise of praise or the slightest threat of ridicule. Show them acceptance, and they will run to your side. Threaten their reputation, and they will kneel. Weakness has no greater mask than the hunger to be liked. Consider also the weakness of distraction. Men once fought wars with swords, rode across continents, and built empires of stone. Now they waste entire lifetimes in idle entertainment, their willpower dissolved in images, games, and endless chatter. A distracted man cannot resist, for he has forgotten how to focus. He becomes soft, docile, and obedient without ever realizing it. Those who command attention command power. Those who scatter attention with trifles keep their rivals harmless. Weakness thrives where distraction reigns, and the distracted will always serve the focused. But the deepest weakness of all lies in self-deception. People lie to themselves because reality is heavy, and truth demands courage. They tell themselves they are strong, yet they tremble when confronted. They claim independence, yet rely on the opinions of others for every decision. They speak of morality, yet break their own rules when temptation rises. Such hypocrisy does not merely corrupt, it destroys. For the one who cannot master himself cannot master others. The one who hides from his own weaknesses will never see the weaknesses of his enemies. To rise in the modern world, you must first despise weakness in yourself. Discipline must become your foundation. You cannot afford to be ruled by sudden anger, blind hope, or crippling fear. You must train yourself to act not according to impulse, but according to calculation. Every decision must serve your advantage, every action weighed for consequence. Where others react like animals, you must respond like a strategist. The weak are tossed about by chance. The strong bend chance to their purpose. At the same time, you must learn to recognize weakness in others, for it is the key to control. Observe how easily people reveal themselves. The one who gossips is desperate for attention. The one who flatters is begging for favor. The one who argues loudly is secretly insecure. Once you see the weakness, you hold the leash. Promise the gossiper secrets, and he will sell himself to you. Offer the flatterer scraps of approval, and he will serve loyally. Challenge the loud arguer subtly, and he will collapse under his own noise. Weakness, when recognized, becomes the most useful weapon in your arsenal. The modern world rewards those who understand this truth. Leaders rise not because they are the most intelligent, but because they exploit the emotions of the masses. Corporations dominate not because they are the most moral, but because they prey on the weakness of human desire and fear. Even in the smallest circles, families, friendships, workplaces, the one who sees weakness and uses it holds power over those who pretend it does not exist. Speak of virtue, practice calculation. The world worships virtue in words, but power is never gained through virtue in practice. Those who truly rise understand that the language of morality is a shield, a cloak, a mask that conceals their sharper intentions. Society expects leaders, rulers, and even ordinary men to appear just, honest, merciful, and selfless. Yet the path to power requires one to act with deception, cruelty when necessary, and relentless calculation. To proclaim virtue while secretly practicing strategy is the only way to survive and ascend. Human beings are simple in their expectations. They demand that those in positions of authority display goodness, fairness, and honor. A leader who appears immoral will be despised, and a man who openly admits to ruthlessness will find himself hated. People want the illusion of virtue, not its reality. They crave leaders who soothe their conscience, not leaders who reveal the harsh truth of survival. And so, the wise never reveal their true intentions. They speak of justice while plotting conquest, they promise fairness while preparing betrayal, and they proclaim peace while sharpening the sword. This duality is the essence of control. To act purely with honesty and virtue is to walk naked into a battlefield, armed only with good intentions. Such a man will be devoured by wolves who wear smiles. To act purely with cruelty and ambition, however, is equally dangerous, for men fear the tyrant who shows his fangs. The true art lies in balance. Speak of light while walking through shadows. Offer promises of safety while planning to tighten control, and present yourself as a savior while secretly carving the world in your image. Observe the powerful of the modern age. They speak endlessly of values, freedom, equality, justice. Yet behind their speeches lie ruthless negotiations, strategic manipulations, and carefully calculated betrayals. The politician who campaigns on promises of fairness often wins not because he believes them, but because he understands the crowd needs to believe them. The corporation that declares its mission to improve lives does so while extracting profit at every possible corner. The preacher who calls for purity may secretly indulge in the very vices he condemns. What unites them is not hypocrisy for its own sake, but the knowledge that power flows to those who speak of virtue while practicing calculation. Consider the difference between appearance and action. Appearance is the theater, action is the reality. To the masses, appearance is more important than reality itself. A ruler who appears merciful but executes enemies in secret will still be loved if his mercy is well staged. A leader who appears generous but hoards wealth in private will still be praised if the display of generosity is convincing. The crowd cannot pierce the mask. They see only what is presented. Thus, the mask must always shine with virtue, while the hand behind it remains cold and deliberate. To master this art, one must learn the discipline of silence. Speak only of principles, never of plans. Share words of loyalty, honesty, and brotherhood, but keep calculations hidden behind an impenetrable wall. Those who speak too openly of strategy invite suspicion. Those who boast of their cleverness arouse fear. But the one who cloaks calculation in virtue will always be trusted. And trust, once given, becomes the very key to control. There is also the matter of timing. Virtue is a performance, and performances must be convincing. When mercy is expected, show it loudly, publicly, dramatically. When generosity is needed, give, but give in a way that binds others to your debt. When honesty is demanded, reveal a small truth to conceal a greater lie. Each act of apparent virtue must be calculated, each gesture designed not for goodness but for advantage. The danger lies in believing your own mask. Many who rise through cunning eventually fall, because they begin to trust the very illusions they created. They convince themselves they are as virtuous as they appear. They forget that their power was built on deception, and they lose the sharp edge of calculation. The mask must be worn with mastery, but the wearer must never forget that it is only a mask. The moment you start believing you are truly good, you lose the ability to act when cruelty is required. The masses will never see this truth. They are too blinded by the comfort of believing in virtue. They despise those who break illusions, yet they will follow to the grave those who uphold them, even if they are secretly leading them into chains. A skilled manipulator understands this contradiction and uses it to his advantage. Give people the words they wish to hear, the gestures they wish to see, the appearances they wish to believe. Behind those appearances, pursue your true goals with precision. A man who rules by calculation alone will be hated, but a man who rules by words of virtue will be worshipped. The strongest ruler, however, is the one who merges the two, adored for his virtue, unstoppable for his calculation. Rule by fear and desire. The essence of control lies in understanding the twin forces that move every human being, fear and desire. These are the invisible chains that bind men and women more securely than iron shackles. Fear restrains them, desire compels them, and together they shape the boundaries within which the masses live and act. To rule without mastering fear and desire is impossible, for no one obeys reason alone. Logic persuades the mind, but it is fear and desire that command the will. Fear is the more reliable of the two, for it requires no constant feeding. A single act of punishment, a single demonstration of power, can echo in the memory of men far longer than 100 acts of kindness. Fear breeds caution, obedience, and silence. It whispers to men that disobedience carries consequences, and once they have learned this lesson, they will hesitate before raising a hand against you. Desire, however, must be continually nurtured. Give a man what he craves, and soon he will crave more. Deny him for too long, and he may turn against you. Fear fixes his eyes on the danger of defiance. Desire fixes them on the rewards of loyalty. To govern effectively, both must be wielded in balance. Consider how rulers, past and present, have employed this dual art. The tyrant who relies only on fear creates a population that waits for the first chance to rise against him. Terror can silence, but it also breeds hatred, and hatred is a fire that smolders until it finds air. The weak ruler who relies only on desire creates a people who grow spoiled, ungrateful, and entitled. When the rewards no longer flow, they turn on him with the same ingratitude they once masked with praise. True mastery lies in blending fear and desire so carefully that men cannot separate them. They must feel both gratitude for what they are given and dread for what they may lose. In personal dealings, the same law applies. Friends, lovers, allies, and subordinates all respond to these forces. The ally who desires your approval will remain loyal as long as you grant it. But he must also fear the consequences of betrayal. The lover who desires your affection will cling to you, but she must also fear losing your presence if her loyalty falters. The subordinate who desires advancement will serve you eagerly, but he must also fear that disobedience will end his rise. Without fear, desire becomes reckless. Without desire, fear becomes unbearable. The secret is to weave the two into a single chain. Modern power structures exploit this truth with ruthless efficiency. Governments keep their citizens in line by feeding them desires. Comfort, entertainment, a promise of security, while reminding them of the fear of instability, chaos, and punishment. Corporations entice with products that satisfy desires, then whisper of the fear of being left behind, outdated, or excluded if one does not consume. Even in small groups, leaders create loyalty by rewarding those who follow and punishing those who resist. The method changes, but the principle remains the same. Rule by fear and desire, or rule not at all. To employ fear effectively, it must be measured. Too much cruelty breeds rebellion. Fear must be sharp enough to keep men in check, but subtle enough that it does not drive them to desperation. Desperation creates men who are dangerous, for they have nothing left to lose. The wise ruler punishes swiftly but selectively. He makes examples, not massacres. He instills just enough dread that the memory of consequence lingers, but he does not drown his subjects in terror that leaves them no hope. Fear must feel like a shadow, always present, never overwhelming. To employ desire effectively, it must be calculated. Too much generosity weakens authority, for men begin to see rewards as rights rather than gifts. They become demanding, and gratitude turns to resentment when their desires are not met. The wise ruler gives sparingly but strategically. He grants favors at moments when they secure loyalty, rewards when they strengthen bonds, and pleasures when they distract from discontent. Desire must feel like a flame, warming enough to attract, but always needing the ruler's hand to keep it alive. The balance between fear and desire is delicate but essential. If you lean too heavily on fear, you may maintain order but never loyalty. If you lean too heavily on desire, you may inspire loyalty but never respect. The one who rules best is the one who can make men both grateful for his generosity and cautious of his wrath. They must look to him as the source of what they cherish most and as the threat of what they dread most. In this way, he becomes indispensable, and indispensability is the highest form of power. Men will never admit it, but their loyalty is rarely to principles or ideals. It is to the hand that feeds them and the sword that hangs above them. Speak to them of justice, and they will applaud. Threaten their security, and they will obey. Offer them comfort, and they will cling to you. In the end, fear and desire are the only languages that every man understands. Where the mask of charm power is rarely taken by force alone. The sword can conquer, but it cannot hold. Fear can restrain, but it cannot inspire. Desire can attract, but it cannot protect. The most enduring weapon of all is charm, for charm disarms suspicion, blinds judgment, and wins willing obedience where threats would provoke resistance. To wear the mask of charm is to wield invisible authority, to appear harmless while plotting domination, to seem generous while hoarding control. The wolf who bares his teeth may terrify, but the wolf who smiles as a shepherd rules unchallenged. Men are not guided by truth but by perception, and charm is the art of shaping perception into a weapon. To the masses, appearance is reality. They cannot see intention, they cannot measure calculation, and they cannot judge character beyond the mask presented to them. If you appear kind, they will assume kindness. If you appear trustworthy, they will grant you their trust. If you appear humble, they will never suspect your ambition. By disguising the steel of your will beneath the velvet of charm, you make others complicit in their own manipulation. They will give you what you want willingly, believing it is their choice. Charm must not be confused with sincerity. The sincere man is at the mercy of his emotions. He wins affection when he feels affection. He inspires loyalty when he believes in loyalty, and he loses both when his feelings change. Charm, however, is deliberate, a mask chosen and worn for effect. You do not need to feel kindness to show it. You do not need to believe in trust to appear trustworthy. You do not need to care for others to seem compassionate. You simply need to act the part so convincingly that no one dares to question it. The actor, not the honest man, rules the stage of life. Consider how charm seduces even the wise. A ruler who greets his people with warmth, who remembers their names, who smiles at their children, will be loved even if his taxes are crushing. A merchant who flatters his clients, who speaks as though he cares for their fortunes, will be trusted even as he drains their wealth. A leader who praises his allies, who listens patiently to their concerns, will hold their loyalty even as he plots their eventual replacement. Charm is not about truth. It is about creating an illusion strong enough to blind those who stand before you. The art of charm lies in adaptability. To the proud, you must appear humble. To the humble, you must appear respectful. To the ambitious, you must appear supportive. To the fearful, you must appear protective. Every man desires a reflection of himself, and the charmer becomes that reflection. By mirroring the needs and emotions of others, you weave yourself into their confidence. They begin to see you not as an outsider, but as one of their own. This illusion creates a bond stronger than chains, for chains can be broken, but trust once given rarely returns to suspicion until it is too late. Charm also thrives in moderation. Excessive sweetness becomes suspicious. Too much flattery breeds contempt. Just as a mask must be worn lightly to seem natural, charm must flow effortlessly. Praise sparingly, so that your words carry weight. Smile often enough to disarm, but not so often that your smile feels rehearsed. Listen intently, but speak with authority when the moment comes. Let others believe they are leading, while you quietly guide their steps. The best charm is invisible, for it convinces others that your kindness and warmth are not strategy but nature. There is power in restraint. The charmer does not reveal all at once. A mystery surrounds him, drawing people closer, eager to learn more, desperate for his approval. By offering only glimpses of yourself, you create the hunger for more, and that hunger becomes another form of control. Too much exposure breeds familiarity, and familiarity breeds contempt. The mask of charm must always conceal more than it reveals. The less they know of your true self, the more they will invent virtues on your behalf. Virtues that you never need to possess so long as they believe you do. Charm also serves as a shield. Open displays of ambition provoke rivals, but charm hides ambition beneath a cloak of harmlessness. Enemies underestimate the one who appears gentle. They dismiss him as weak, naive, or unthreatening, only to find too late that, while they were distracted, he was advancing. Allies cling to the one who appears generous, never suspecting that generosity is calculated. Subordinates serve the one who appears fair, never realizing that fairness is only an illusion designed to keep them compliant. By the time they discover the truth, the charmer's power is already too entrenched to challenge. In the private sphere, charm binds more securely than love. Love fades with time, passion, or betrayal, but charm creates admiration that lingers. The charming man is forgiven faults that would ruin another. His errors are excused as mistakes, his betrayals as misunderstandings, his cruelty as necessity. People will rationalize his actions because they cannot reconcile their perception of him with the reality of what he does. They prefer to keep their illusions intact rather than admit they were deceived. This is the true genius of charm. It makes others complicit in their own manipulation, protecting the charmer from suspicion, even when evidence is clear. The mask of charm is not merely a tool for survival, it is a foundation for dominance. To terrify is to control bodies, but to charm is to control minds and hearts. The one who rules through terror is obeyed reluctantly, always at risk of rebellion. The one who rules through charm is followed willingly, even joyfully, as though his subjects' obedience were their own idea. Such obedience is the most enduring form of power, for it requires no chains, no guards, no threats, only the mask, carefully maintained, worn with patience, and never removed. Divide and rule. The greatest threat to power is unity among those you govern. One man alone is rarely dangerous, but many men with a shared purpose can topple empires. History reveals this truth repeatedly. No fortress has been too strong, no ruler too feared, once the masses have gathered in a single cause. Yet the same masses, when divided by suspicion, rivalry, and conflict, will remain harmless, too busy devouring one another to ever challenge the throne above them. Division is the surest shield of power, and mastery of it ensures control without the need for endless displays of strength. Human beings are creatures of pride, envy, and ambition. They hunger for recognition, they crave superiority, and they despise the thought of being less than another. This nature makes them easy to fracture. All that is required is the careful planting of doubt, the subtle suggestion that one ally cannot be fully trusted, the whisper that one rival plots in secret. Few will resist suspicion once it has entered their ears, for suspicion feeds on itself. A man who begins to question loyalty will soon find proof where none exists, and by the time the truth is clear, the bond is already broken. To divide effectively, one must first study the ambitions of those around him. No two men desire exactly the same prize. One seeks wealth, another recognition, another influence, another comfort. These ambitions collide, for no prize can be shared without resentment. By subtly favoring one ambition over another, by elevating one man at the expense of his peer, you create jealousies that fester. Let each believe he deserves more. Let each suspect the other of standing in his way, and soon they will expend their energy competing against each other, rather than uniting against you. Observe how even great institutions maintain power through division. Religious orders split their followers into sects, each believing itself the truth. Governments encourage party lines, knowing that citizens will exhaust themselves in mutual hatred, rather than question the rulers above them. Corporations foster internal competition, setting departments against one another so that employees remain too distracted to demand change. Families, even, fracture under the weight of favoritism and inheritance, with brothers and sisters turning on each other, rather than challenging the authority of the patriarch, who manipulates them. Division is not an accident of human life. It is a tool wielded deliberately by those who understand its worth. The appearance of unity must sometimes be allowed, but never in truth. Men must believe they are allies, bound by trust and loyalty, while beneath the surface you ensure that distrust always lurks. Present yourself as the common friend, the mediator, the one who calms disputes, while quietly ensuring they never fully disappear. The clever ruler resolves quarrels in public, but feeds them in private. He ensures his subordinates smile together at the table, but whisper against each other in the shadows. When suspicion grows too faint, he revives it with a well-timed suggestion. When hatred grows too strong, he softens it with temporary reconciliation. Thus, his subjects remain balanced on the edge of discord, never united enough to turn on him, never divided enough to collapse entirely. Division must also extend to information. A population that shares truth without obstruction is dangerous, for shared truth creates shared cause. Therefore, control what is known and what is hidden. Reveal to one what you conceal from another. Spread fragments of knowledge, never the whole. Misinformation is as useful as truth, for men rarely question what confirms their fears. By guiding the flow of knowledge, you ensure that men distrust each other more than they distrust you. In the fog of confusion, no alliance can fully solidify, for each man doubts whether his partner holds a different secret, a different promise, or a different truth. Even allies closest to you must never be allowed to trust one another more than they trust you. If they form bonds independent of your authority, they create the foundation of rebellion. Keep them at odds, each dependent on your favor to protect him from the ambitions of the other. Reward one today, another tomorrow. Offer conflicting promises that cannot all be fulfilled, forcing them to compete for your approval. Let each believe he is indispensable, yet never allow him to feel secure. Loyalty born of gratitude may fade, but loyalty born of rivalry endures. For men who fear losing your favor will cling to you more tightly than men who simply admire you. The power of divide and rule lies not in open conflict but in silent tension. Open conflict can destroy order, but silent tension preserves control. Your subordinates may shake hands in your presence, but in their hearts they must remain wary. Your rivals may sit at your table, but they must glance at one another with suspicion. Your allies may call each other brothers, but they must secretly doubt the other's intentions. When each man is uncertain, when each man fears betrayal, when each man wonders whether he is truly safe, they all look to you as the only stable center. You become not just the ruler, but the glue that holds the fragments together. Without you, they would collapse into chaos, and so they cling to your presence as the only guarantee of order. The principle extends beyond the individual to the masses. A people divided by class, by race, by faith, by ideology, or by wealth will never unite against their rulers. Encourage these divisions quietly, never too obviously, lest they turn against you as the source. Allow each group to believe its enemy is not the hand above them, but the neighbor beside them. Feed each faction just enough recognition to keep it alive, just enough grievance to keep it restless. In such a climate, rebellion is impossible, for the people cannot agree on a common enemy. They destroy themselves while you remain untouchable. Power is not an accident, nor is it a gift. It is taken, shaped, and preserved by those who understand the hidden laws that govern men. Weakness is the disease, virtue the mask, fear and desire the chains, charm the disguise, and division the eternal shield. Together, these principles form the true art of control in the modern world, an art mastered not by the dreamers who cling to illusions, but by the realists who see men as they are and use them as they must. Most will never see these truths. They will continue living as pawns, convinced of their freedom while bound by their own emotions, blinded by the illusions of morality, enslaved by desire, softened by charm, and divided until they can no longer resist. But you, having glimpsed these principles, are no longer blind. The choice now is whether you remain a spectator in this game of power or step forward as a player. If you wish to keep learning the hidden strategies of rulers, manipulators, and masters of control across history and today, then stay with me. Subscribe and prepare for the next story that will sharpen your vision and bring you closer to mastery.